Welcome to the Comic Sauce Podcast, where we talk comics and comics culture. I am Henry Liu, and today I'm joined by Christian Diadamo. Christian, how are you doing?
How's it going? I'm doing well. It's really hot though. I am burning up.
Same here. Summer is definitely here. We are also joined by Porfirio Rangel. Porfirio, how goes?
I'm doing pretty well. Like I'm also dying the heat here in Orange County, but happy to be here though with you guys.
Excellent. Today is June 17th, 2021. And the Comic Sauce Podcast is on social media. Check us out at Comic Sauce Pod on Twitter and Instagram. So today we're going to talk about Jurassic Park. Why Jurassic Park, you might ask? The answer is I don't know, because we feel like it, I guess. Well, I guess there's a loose reason, and that is the original Jurassic Park movie released almost to the day 28 years ago, June 11th, 1993. So somewhat of an anniversary. We all did watch this movie in preparation, and we're going to talk about it. And to lead the conversation, Christian Diadamo. Christian, take it away.
All right, all right, all right. Okay, so Jurassic Park was a movie, as you said, released 28 years ago, June 12th or June 11th in 1993. And of course, it's a movie that needs no introduction. Uh, Wonderful classic movie. So let's jump right into it then. So my first question for everybody is, how did you guys grow up or like watch Jurassic Park like originally? What is the legacy of this movie to you? So who would like to start?
I'll start. So, I mean, yeah, like you said, it came out in '93, so it's actually a year older than me. Um, and I don't remember when the first time I watched it. I just know I was probably less than 5 years old when I first watched this movie. And so obviously it has a huge tie into my childhood and everything. Um, there's a bunch of nostalgia, but honestly, yeah, it's still one of the greatest movies I could say, like for its time and even now. Um, and yeah, like I delve right into it because at a young age, besides um comic book superheroes, dinosaurs was a big thing. And this movie had plenty of it, and it was pretty awesome from a little kid's perspective. Um, I don't know what the hell was going on, but when you watch a dinosaur movie, you don't need to know what's going on, besides the fact that like it's a T Rex, you better run the fuck away from it. But yeah, I love that movie. It's a great movie, great story, great music, great effects, great everything.
All right. And what about you, Henry? What did you think of Jurassic Park back in the day when you first watched it?
So yeah, Jurassic Park, I definitely recognize that this is a major moment in movies. It heralded a new CG revolution in movies, a landmark in visual effects. It was directed by an absolute legend in Steven Spielberg. I definitely recognize, the importance of this movie. Now, when I saw it, I think is significant for me because I saw it when I was, I believe, 18 years old. So I feel like if I had seen this movie as a younger person, like, Porfirio, you're saying you saw it when you were 5. Like, if I had seen it between the ages of, like, I don't know, 5 and 13 or something, I'd probably be with you guys in like regarding this as like an all timer, a special movie in my heart. And something I feel like strong nostalgia for. As it is, I remember seeing it and I was like already sort of like, you know, getting into like more alternative stuff. So like um I think a big moment for me is when I saw Quentin Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs, and that came out in 1992.
Mhm.
Um, so I was already sort of like moving away from mainstream and diving into more extreme kind of stuff. So I think I felt like I was maybe too cool for this movie when I saw it. It's crazy, yeah. When you in life you see a movie, I think is it can have a big difference, you know. So even then, I enjoyed it and I recognized how significant an achievement it was. But it's never really held a special place in my heart to this day. It really hasn't. Um, but like I said, you know, I think I recognize like the greatness of it, the objective greatness of it for sure. And you know, I was kind of joking around before about how it's kind of silly we're even talking about this movie on a comics podcast. There kind of is a better reason, I think, that we're talking about it, and that's fandom. You know, we talk about fandom all the time, and even though we call ourselves a comics podcast, I think more so we're a fandom podcast.
Mhm.
And Jurassic Park is a huge fandom, and it's from a fandom perspective, absolutely worth talking about anytime. So I think, yeah, why not Jurassic Park? Let's talk about it.
All right. Those are two very great perspectives. And I think yeah, what you said, Henry, is definitely like rings very true. At what age you are when you see a movie is very important. I guess before I talk about Jurassic Park, I do also want to say I saw Reservoir Dogs when I was around that same age, and yeah, there is something about like the grit of that movie that I think just really blew my mind when I when I was 17, 18. I had never seen anything like that or Pulp Fiction before. Even though by the time I saw it, the like I think Inglorious Bastards was like going to come out in a year, so that was way later. But even then, I think that's another movie from the early 90s that still really holds up. But
Mhm.
Right.
I guess Jurassic Park. So I'm definitely more in the camp with Porfirio. I saw it at a very young age on VHS. Um, I don't even remember how old I was. I was probably very similar to Porfirio, where I was about like under the age of 10, and I watched that and the sequel, The Lost World, also on VHS. Like it was kind of like one of those repeat movies. Um, and I think I was very swept up as a kid in just the world of dinosaurs. Because I think by the time that I had seen it in the late 90s, like the dinosaur craze was like, that was already very well in full swing.
Yep.
Because there was that, there was the dinosaur TV show, just I think the dinosaurs, which I watched in the morning. I played Super Mario World on my Super Nintendo and like had a bunch of dinosaur toys. So this definitely is like a very special movie in my childhood, and I did find that rewatching it, like you do kind of when you watch that one of those favorite childhood movies, you feel like you're kind of swept up back in that childhood like emotion and wonder for some of the best ones, I think. And this is definitely one of those movies like that where I think if you've seen it as a kid and you watch it again, just something about the sweeping visuals and the score just in a sense kind of brings you back.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I felt about it now. But rewatching it, what are your guys' general thoughts on the movie? Seeing it now, how do you guys think it kind of just generally holds up as a movie?
For me, I still think it's still a really good movie. I don't see it as like being outdated or anything with the special effects. I guess like appreciate the effects for how they were at the time. Like I just see it like as a movie ahead of its time, and um, even now, like those effects are a lot better than some movies that we get nowadays. Like better than like like Sharknado or or even like The Hobbit. But yeah, I think it still lives up to the legacy that it had when it was first released.
This is so funny to me because it really emphasizes that point we were talking about earlier. When did you see the movie? When in your life did you see the movie, right? And I feel like there's a period in your life where, you know, if you see a movie and you really love it, it can basically do no wrong for the rest of your life, right? Because like I said, I didn't hate this movie, and seeing it again this past week, again, I didn't hate it. Both times I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it. But I've never really held it in such high regard. So when I saw it again, I did feel like the effects were quite dated. Now, to be clear, I want to say that the CG effects felt very dated, because the interesting thing about this movie is that it's kind of a hybrid, right? There are practical effects and CG effects, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the practical effects are very cool to this day, I think. They used animatronics for this movie. So they used dinosaur animatronics, and I think they look hella cool. Now, with the CG stuff, that's where I feel like the movie feels really dated. I'm used to seeing like high definition movies on my TV at home, and to be hit with this old school CG, it just felt like pretty old. Just put it that way. So yeah, I did feel at moments, not the whole movie, like I'm alluding to, but there were moments where it felt really dated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's funny how like it's the CG, the newer like state of the art effects at the time are now the ones you notice are dated now.
Yeah.
Whereas like the much older styles of movie making definitely like hold up a lot better, and I think are more pleasing to the eye.
Yeah.
And yeah, seeing it now, in my high def TV, I watched it on Blu-ray. And so there were free spots where you see in back, like I think when they first see the Brachiosaurus, you're like, oh yeah, that's CG. But then when they get a lot closer to the dinosaurs themselves, you're like, oh wow, that looks really cool.
Mm-hmm. Hey, real quick, that scene, the Brachiosaurus scene, that's kind of what I'm talking about exactly. So that's a major moment in the movie, right? It's the moment when the main characters of the movie first realize there are real live dinosaurs on this island, right? And there's this cool shot of Laura Dern first seeing this giant dinosaur, right? And you first see her, you don't see the dinosaur, right? You see her, and she does like this great reaction where she, whoa, are you guys still there?
Yeah.
That was
Yes.
trippy.
That was.
It was like a hard out.
Mm-hmm. I thought that was me. Oh
Yeah,
no.
I wasn't sure what the heck happened. Okay. Well, it's still recording. I'm wondering if it is just going to continue on. I assume
Maybe.
so.
Do you want to try stopping the recording and then just restarting it, just to have like definite endpoints?
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, let me stop this and we can restart. Hold on one sec. Okay, so you see the reaction of Laura Dern, right? And she's just like, oh my God, she can't believe what she's seeing. So yeah, it's a good performance, right? Because you see her eyes and you just feel it. You feel that she's completely wowed. And then you get the shot of the dinosaur, and then you hear John Williams' great score swell, and it's a big moment, right? And I remember at the time, in the 90s, that it was a big deal, right? This is like, okay, we're seeing a live dinosaur for real. But, watching it in the year 2021 on a high def TV, not as not so much a home run anymore. I feel like it just it looked a little clunky, and it didn't feel like you're looking at a real dinosaur, right? It felt like a computer generated dinosaur, right? So yeah, not the only somewhat clunky CGI in the movie, but definitely the most memorable, because I remember that being a really important part of the movie, and now, decades later, feeling like, oh, like, okay, this doesn't have the punch that it used to have.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, I do remember like seeing that scene and just having that big wow moment. And there's quite a few moments like that in the movie where the movie just stops and says like, look at these dinosaurs, and like look what we've accomplished here with CGI for the first time, in a sense.
Right.
And there's a lot of slow motion shots where the music just kind of swells. And I think like, whereas like, yeah, I seeing it nowadays, like I definitely did get a bit of those like, oh, I remembered loving this as a kid. I think what really kind of holds those moments up still is really like the music. I think the music is so well done. It's such an iconic John Williams score that like for me, like I still kind of that's kind of where the feeling kind of resides, so to speak. In that, and of course, like you said, I think the way the actors kind of react to the CGI and react to what they're seeing is very, very well done. Because I met like back then, especially back in the 90s and early 2000s, when CGI was so new. A lot of actors and directors had problems working with it and making acting more genuine when you didn't really know what you were reacting to. Like if you look at the Star Wars prequels, of course, I think are like kind of that shining example where the actors really did not know what they were interacting with or what was going on around them, and so they come off very wooden. And so, like, of course, Steven Spielberg, he does it right the first time.
Yeah, I definitely want to second that point about John Williams. That's something that is really timeless in this movie, the musical score.
Mm-hmm.
It's really awesome. It took this movie that, for some, like me, arguably, may consider it as, maybe not the highest quality entertainment, to something that is really memorable. Yeah, that's one thing that stuck out, like, as a real big positive, that maybe I didn't even recognize so much way back when. The music. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't have like noted the music so much before, but it hit me pretty hard this time how cool it was. It added some like grandeur to the movie, and especially early on when you're being drawn into this magical world of wonder, right? So a lot of it is depending on the acting, like we're talking about, the actors reacting to seeing dinosaurs for the first time, and just like these cool little like helicopter shots of you getting dropped into this different world. But the score is a big part of it too. Once that
Mm-hmm.
score hits, um, yeah, I just felt like, okay, there's something big coming. You just get that anticipation.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I can't say enough about the great musical score.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just about to add on, like, yeah, that music is just so iconic and everything, and like it's just, when you hear that, like,
Yeah.
it's just like, like, it feels welcoming, it feels epic, it just feels legendary, and you just know that you're going to be taken on a grand ride through Jurassic Park, and
Yeah.
it's really iconic. And I mean, it's just so well known, like, like so many, I feel like it's been used in, like, commercials and all that kind of stuff, and you just know, like, okay, either like a dinosaur's going to show up or something, or like something grand is going to happen.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Like, I have a question for you guys when you guys think of like, say, like your favorite movies, um, or very just at the very least, very very memorable movies. Would you guys say the score and the music is one of the first thing that comes to mind when recalling a movie or a movie that you really love? Because if you think of this, another John Williams movie, Star Wars, of course, um, and like that, because that I guess that's true for me. I think a lot of my favorite movies have like very like icon, big, great scores. So what do you guys think?
Yeah, for me, yeah, I definitely do think so. I think, like some of my favorite movies are, Lord of the Rings, the Avengers franchise, even like my favorite movie, like Pacific Rim, I could still remember know the music score to that. Um, yeah, so I think, like, yeah, if you have like a favorite film, you could definitely remember the score, and that makes it just even more like iconic and epic.
Yeah, I agree too. The musical moments in my favorite movies are always in my head. And when you have a conversation with a fellow movie geek, usually it's one of two things: one, quoting memorable lines, and two,
Mm-hmm.
the music, right? Humming the theme song, right? Those are the two big things. So yeah, absolutely. The music is a huge part of the movie experience.
Yeah, and it's funny that you bring up memorable lines because I think that's also something that I think really sticks out a bit uh, about Jurassic Park, are just all the like very quotable lines. Like, of course, clever girl, um, hold on to your butts, um,
Yes.
and you didn't say the magic word, ah ah ah. and and so one thing I think like I really enjoy about this movie is just like, and I really like how snappy the dialogue is in a way. Life finds a way.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I feel like a lot of, like, those classic lines, they're not just, zingers, like one line zingers. They're really, like, I feel like natural kind of dialogue, like, life will find a way. Um, or like, how we were saying earlier about, like, Dawson, this is Dawson right here. Like how he just says it so loud. Like you could say, like, probably like one or two words from, like, uh a catchphrase from Jurassic Park, and you just remember, like, oh yeah, that's at this part, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like, this is a very open-ended question, of course, but what do you guys think goes into making a memorable line? Like,
Yeah, that is a good question.
yeah, that's a question with a lot of answers. I don't even
you,
know how I would answer that.
you know, I think that the hidden answer here is how good the movie is. because you could have great dialogue, but in the end, if it's not a great movie, people aren't going to really remember it, right? So that's like number one. You have to have a decent movie, a movie that people are going to watch, and a movie that people are going to watch multiple times. And it's upon viewing after viewing, that's when they start like saying these lines over and over to themselves and to their friends and whatnot, right? So I think that's a big part of it. It has to be a good movie. It has to be a movie people watch over and over. And then the second part is, yeah, like sharp writing, like a good screenwriter. You need a good screenwriter to have like quotable lines. So I think it's kind of those two things.
I kind of think it. I mean, I agree with you, Henry, but I also think to add on, just like it, as like actor, you just have to bring yourself into the scene. Like some of the greatest lines, like going off Jurassic Park, like going away from Jurassic Park, like like that scene in Infinity War when like everybody's disappearing and then Tom Holland's like, Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good. Like, he totally improvised that because the Russo brothers told him like just be part of the scene, like you're disappearing. So how would you react? And like that, or when in Dark Knight when Joker is like trying to blow up the hospital and then the explosions don't go off and then he like totally improvises and stuff. So I just feel like it's just part of the actor's like job of how good he brings himself into the scene that just makes that catch line or the catchphrase like that much more memorable.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah,
a great point.
that is good.
And you're right. A lot of the most memorable lines are not scripted. So yeah, that's a great counter argument. And the acting performance is a huge part of it too. Agreed.
I guess I have something else I guess to add as another part of what makes a memorable line. And I think there's something I think in the pacing and like kind of like the flow of a scene, movie as a whole, to make these great lines. Because usually when you think of like a lot of the great lines, like in this movie, it's usually like right before something happens. Like the famous "clever girl" line is right before the guy gets killed, as the guy is hunting the raptor, and he thinks he sees one, and one's right next to him. Clever girl, and that's the last thing he says before he gets mauled by a raptor.
Yeah.
Or another one of my another great line from The Dark Knight. I'm not wearing hockey pads. Is what he say. Is what Batman says as he drives away.
Nice.
And so I would say like the answer might be like it could be a mix of all of what we said. There could be another special ingredient that we're missing. Or it could be like one of each, or who knows, maybe it could be all the above, maybe the above, like, but they're definitely like it's a part of what makes a movie memorable, It's part of why we keep talking about it today after 28 years.
Hey, that's a good point too. You're saying how a lot of the memorable lines in Jurassic Park are right before like this big monster moment, right? So that's like staging, right? Setting up the line. Like that's important. If you're setting up a scene sloppily, maybe having music playing over a key line of dialogue, or in the editing process, you're just not setting up the dialogue properly, then yeah, you can lose the magic in the line, right? So yeah, how you set it up is important too, for sure.
And I guess going off of that, so that actually kind of reminded me. So in the last episode, I talked about we were talking about horror, and I was talking about how I like horror in things, but I'm not like a big fan of horror on its own. And so I would actually say this is a really good example of that, of a movie that uses horror as an ingredient in the way it sets up scenes. Because when you think of the most memorable scenes of the movie, I think for me, of course, there are a lot of the big dinosaur moments, the big dinosaur kills, the when you first see the big T-Rex and the T-Rex is knocking over the car, and the water in the cup is rumbling, and you kind of hear it and gets all quiet. And so, like, you have scenes like that really like kind of like change the pacing up of the movie. Because before we were talking about how like the awe in seeing the Brachiosaurus and how much larger and how like you had this big sweeping score and how like it fills you with this emotion. But then like, 20, 30 minutes later, we have a scene like this that's also like one of the big iconic scenes, or even the kitchen scene with the velociraptors. It was like a scene that scared me as a kid. I don't know about you guys. So what do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of the way this kind of like in a sense like blends genres or just like memorable scenes? I don't really have, I guess, much of a question. I just really wanted to share that moment.
I did ask myself, like, what is this movie exactly? What genre is the movie? And yeah, I wasn't sure exactly, but I think in the end, it's a monster movie. I think that's kind of the most
Mm-hmm.
logical categorization of the movie. Um, monster action, monster destruction, and the same thrills that you might get from a Godzilla movie. Yeah, that's here as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it's yeah, I don't know how to categorize it. I guess like action and adventure. I don't know because that's typical basic genre, but like it definitely has like a mix of like horror, thriller, um, drama, and there's like you guys were saying like the dinosaur scenes were very much like thriller kind of um scenes about like that anxious anxiety about like waiting to see the T-Rex on screen. Then when you finally see it on screen, it's like, what's gonna happen next? What's gonna happen next? Or Christian, like how you were saying that Velociraptor kitchen scene, it's just like, what's gonna happen? Like, are the kids gonna make it? Are they not? This is not a kids movie, so who knows what's gonna happen with them. Um, so yeah, I thought that was cool. Like, yeah, the blending of different um, kinds of genres and elements that make a good movie.
Yeah, like I'm not sure I could nail down one genre. Um, although monster probably is like the best. I think. And these are quote unquote monsters in a sense, and I think part of the allure of the dinosaur is that it exists, or it existed once upon a time. But on one hand, it was so long ago that Earth was a completely different planet then, and they were so large that they were in a sense mythical
Yep.
as well. So I think it's almost like the closest that like we have to like actual dragons in a way, like
Oh
actual like
yeah.
mythical giant creatures.
Yeah.
And
So,
now isn't it like chickens are the closest thing we have to
mhm,
dinosaurs nowadays, or something like that?
yeah. So I looked it up, when I was doing some research for this movie. But what a connection that dinosaurs have with birds. One reason they were able to get so large was that their bones weren't as dense as mammals, and there were large air sacs within the dinosaurs around the bones. Like if you look at dinosaur bones, you'll see like holes in them, and which is very similar to birds, which helps like birds fly and all that. And so that could be one reason. One of the reasons, like I'm of course no expert, and I when I watch the YouTube videos, They also said that they weren't entirely sure why dinosaurs got so big, but that's part of like the how they got so big.
Hmm.
And so, let's see. Um, like, would you guys say like any downsides to this movie? This is such an iconic, classic movie, and like, I mean, personally, I've been like, hyping it up this whole movie. So, what do you guys think? There's like any negatives to this movie? Like, besides, we have touched on some dated CGI, but as far as anything else that's wrong with the movie, what would you guys say?
One thing that came to mind was how the Jeff Goldblum character played out. Like, I really love Jeff Goldblum in this movie. He's super cool. He's very Jeff Goldbloomy, very quirky. He has some memorable dialogue in this movie for sure. He's a very cool look. He's got the leather jacket and everything. And I thought it was kind of weak how he kind of didn't do anything in the second half of the movie. They sort of set him up as this brilliant, eccentric mathematician, right? And you're sort of given the notion that he's gonna like solve some problem later on, right? It never really happened, right? He gets injured and he just sort of sidelined for the second half of the movie. So I thought that was kind of a disappointment. I was waiting for his big, Independence Day type contribution, but that never really came to fruition. So I don't know if something was left on the cutting room floor for him or something, but yeah, I feel like there was a missing piece there.
For me, I don't know if this is a negative thing, but I would have loved to have seen more dinosaurs. Like, not enough dinosaurs. I think it would have been cool to see more of the exhibit. I mean, like, I feel like, yeah, we got that kind of in Jurassic World, but, like, comparing the two, like, Jurassic World was just, like, all, like, CGI effects. Like, this one was a lot more practical effects, like the Triceratops, the T-Rex, the Velociraptors. They just looked way more realistic, and I wish we could have saw that with a lot more dinosaurs. Which, yeah.
Oh yeah, yes. On your point, Porfirio, like I didn't notice, but the Velociraptors don't show up until like an hour and 30 minutes into the movie, which is something I didn't actually pick up until like watching it again this time, because they're such an iconic part of Jurassic Park, but they're only in it for a very short period of time. And Actually, a funny point about your point, Henry, with Jeff Goldblum and Ian Malcolm. So, spoilers for the book, of course, but Ian Malcolm actually dies in the book, um, but not in the movie. And what happened? People liked his character that they made that he didn't die, so they wanted to make Lost World, and which of course he was the star of, and so Michael Crichton, the writer of the book, essentially retconned his own book to make the Lost World book based on the movie.
Wow.
So the movie kind of influenced the book and it like going back. But yeah, I see what you mean. It does seem like there was something cut with Jeff Goldblum and the way he's kind of built up with his like life finds a way, and like he has that like weird eccentric laugh in the helicopter.
Yeah.
Man, I can't even do it. But
Yeah.
but yeah, like one he gets hurt by the T-Rex and then just kind of lays around for the rest of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And like Sam Jackson also, like, he kind of comes in, he kind of comes in, he says his thing and then just disappears for another part. Although like I think with Sam Jackson, I think it's just meant for that, just the arm scene where Laura Dern pulls his arm.
Yeah.
I guess that is the essentially the payoff to his character.
Right.
But that also seems like something that may have gotten cut.
Yeah.
Like, let's see. It's like I'm just stalling for time, so I can even think of like a big downside to this movie. I think I definitely do think you guys like both have good points that I do agree with, and I have nothing else to add of my own on that.
Well, if you have an answer to that later, I have a really fast question I would like to ask both of
Yeah,
you.
go
Okay,
for it.
so if like we found a way to make dinosaurs come back, you know, should it be done? You know, like Malcolm imposes this question in the movie, like, um, the scientists were trying so hard to do it that it didn't become a question of like if they could do it. The question should have been like, should they do it? You know, like on a, I guess like philosophical and moral standpoint, like should dinosaurs be brought back into this millennia coexisting with humans?
Let's see. Dinosaurs specifically. I would say the movie. I would say no. There's a quote in the movie where I can't remember the quote, or I guess the scene in the movie where Laura Dern is treating the Triceratops, and so I think the point of that scene was that the Triceratops was getting sick because the ecology on the island wasn't the same as the Triceratops had back then. So the Triceratops had a hard time sustaining itself, and staying healthy, and it kept getting sick every 6 weeks. Because at first it's like, oh, is the Triceratops eating this plant? And so Laura Dern, there's the giant, giant mound of shit. Laura Dern sticks her hand into and realizes that it does. At first, it doesn't look like the Triceratops is eating that specific plant that might get the dinosaur sick. And so I guess that's why I would say no. I think the environment has probably changed so much that I don't think we would be able to sustain bringing in an entirely new species and how that species would interact with our current ecology and animal kingdom.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think I would agree. I would say the only way that I would be okay with it is if it could be done safely, not only for the humans managing the process, but also for the dinosaurs that you're introducing into the modern world. And bottom line is, like Christian is saying, I don't think there is a way to do it safely, for the dinosaurs themselves, or like we see in this movie, the humans, right? It is a fiction, but I really wonder if in this hypothetical dinosaurs could exist, could humans contain them safely? I probably not. And or if we could, it wouldn't be I don't know, economically viable. I just don't see it making any kind of sense in the real world. It's a pretty far out hypothetical question, but yeah, if it was somehow possible, I just don't think there'd be a way to make it safe for anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which brings me to another follow-up question. If Jurassic Park existed, would you ever go?
Yeah, totally.
I mean, my gut feeling is yes, but then I go back to the logical part. After seeing a movie like this, I would have to know, what are the safeguards? Am I going to be safe in this hypothetical amusement park? I would think not. So maybe not, but yeah, I would have to know going in, like, okay, what are the safety precautions put in place here?
Mhm.
I'm sorry. I would be like the most immature person. Be like, let's go. Dinosaurs, sure, I'm
Right.
down.
You don't even need to know about like the safety or anything. Just
No,
send
yeah,
in.
I would be like, let's do it. Let's do it. Fuck. Who cares about the safety reasons? I want to see a live T Rex.
Like, yeah, totally. Especially if it was like, if I went to Jurassic World before the movie, before the movie took place, before the day that all the dinosaurs went loose. If I can go to there, yeah, totally. Like, I don't know if I'd want to go to like the island as it was in like Jurassic Park 2 and 3, or just like, okay, let's just take a boat to this island. Like, I think at the beginning of Jurassic Park 3, where it's just the family goes to the island and like they're like hang gliding or something like that, and they're just doing some thrill seeking. No way, no way. At the beginning, I was like, yeah, something bad's gonna happen to them, of course. But Jurassic World, yeah, I would go.
Hey, that's a good point. I was thinking in Jurassic Park, the way that they're introduced into this dinosaur habitat did seem like all that appealing, right? You're in these automated cars, and it seemed like you might get a glimpse of a dinosaur, you might not. And if you did, maybe you don't see them all that clearly. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, if kind of like what you're saying, Christian, if that's the experience that we have in store, maybe I'm not totally on board. Like, I want to know if I can see like a dinosaur pretty close up, in clear view, right?
Yeah, like it'd be cool to be able to like pet the dinosaur like they do when they're in the tree.
Right, right, right. Yeah,
And the Brachiosaurus comes up, like, yeah, it's like, yeah, you'd want an experience like that.
yeah.
You're like right up there.
But yeah, if you're in a moving car through like the car
Mm-hmm.
window, and then maybe the dinosaur is like off in the distance, then I don't know. I might be wanting my money back after that,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah, and if I can get the like those bubbles that they were in Jurassic World, where you can just like go anywhere you want and just you're just in the safety of the bubble.
There you go.
Like I said, before the movie happened.
Yeah, I wanted to pose a question also. Um, so I mentioned Godzilla earlier. I did see some parallels between Jurassic Park and Godzilla movies. Um, you know, Jurassic Park had this overlying theme of humans dabbling in things that are like kind of out of their control. And I think the Godzilla movies, tread in very similar territory, right? Um, Humans just sort of going too far with science and just like getting in over our heads with this stuff, right? And the results are similar also. Giant monsters causing mass destruction and killing people, right? Um, so that's maybe where the similarities end, because there's definitely a different vibe to a Jurassic Park movie and a Godzilla movie, right? So for me, I feel like, I don't know, there's kind of a more punk rock feel with Godzilla movies, and with Jurassic Park movie, it feels a little bit more like, I don't know, mainstream and safe in a way. I don't know. I'd love to get your guys' thoughts on like Jurassic Park movies versus Godzilla movies. I know you both are fans of both.
Hmm. So, okay, yeah, I see what you mean when you bring up like there's like a punk rockness to Godzilla. Um, there there's more destruction. There you have like actual cities being destroyed, right? I guess like I think Jurassic Park, of course, it's all relegated to the island for the most part, and so everything's kind of contained. So in a sense, like it's dangerous when it's there, but there's more of a safety away from the island in a sense. Um, Whereas seeing a city, it's like the city, it's like okay, that's in a sense your home being destroyed, you know. And so in a sense, there's a little like it's almost like that kind of more grit and like punk rock edge. I wonder if that comes from kind of a little more of that personal breakdown. And so I think they both they both definitely they both share that point. Um, and so but it does make me wonder like because Jurassic Park of course is American, Godzilla's Japanese. And so I wonder if because Godzilla, of course, big global hit, but I think because Jurassic Park is an American movie, do you wonder if that's why it feels a little more mainstream, whereas Godzilla comes from a different country in a sense?
That's a
And do you think
solid point.
that's also like kind of why it feels new or a little like I guess a little more fresh in a way, or a little it kind of goes against a little bit of that American mainstream grain.
Yeah, I was definitely gonna point that out. I felt like Godzilla, like it just definitely has like that Eastern kind of cinematography, I guess, like where there's more focus on Godzilla and the destruction of buildings and stuff like that. Whereas Jurassic Park is definitely more Hollywood. Like it's definitely more focused on the storyline and the characters and the music. And I mean, not to say that Godzilla isn't, but there is just you could tell that the two that there's more focal point on those elements in those two different films, and I just feel like it's like a Eastern versus Western kind of take.
Mm-hmm.
This cinematography take on these um, films.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good point about how Godzilla is a little bit more like, I don't know, exotic in a way, a little different. Yeah, maybe that's why to me it feels um, a little more alternative because yeah, it's from a different culture.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and maybe a good follow up to that question is, um, you know, the way I kind of feel about this, I don't want to rain on the Jurassic Park parade by any means, but to me, when I watch Godzilla movies, it almost makes it such that Jurassic Park movies are unnecessary in a way. Like to me, it's like, okay, I can watch a giant lizard monster causing destruction in a Jurassic Park movie. That's cool. But what if I can watch a giant lizard monster
Mm-hmm.
that also shoots blue fire out of his mouth? Isn't that cooler? Like, and I can get like the destruction of major cities and get like tanks and helicopters and jet planes battling it and other giant monsters battling it also. So it's just sort of like, there's that next level factor, right? Um, what might you guys say to someone like me who kind of thinks that, oh, I can sort of get what I want out of a Godzilla movie and I'm good. I don't really need to watch Jurassic Park movie.
Um, let's see. No, I definitely see what you're saying. I definitely agree. Like Godzilla is just on such a much more grand scale than Jurassic Park, and so I think like some of the other movies definitely kind of struggled with trying to up the scale. Whereas like in this movie, there's only like a few people on the island at once. It's just the scientists. Like it seemed like there's one raptor guy, and then like did like a few park staff. Whereas Godzilla, of course, since he's destroying a building and you have the entire like the entire government going after Godzilla. It's a much bigger movie, and I think I really didn't want to bring up anime, but I'm gonna bring up anime because something I know where I think like Japan, there's like a lot of Japanese media that is willing to go, I think, a little darker and I think a little more bloody than a lot of big American movies. Like comparing, I'd say like Akira, like they're one of their biggest comic book movie, to like what would you like our biggest comic book movie? Say like Avengers Endgame. Like, there's as far as like very comparables, Akira is like a much darker movie. It feels like a much grittier and much bloodier movie than Avengers Endgame. Even though like Avengers Endgame may, have more action in it, there's something about the gravity of the violence in Akira that's a little more striking in a sense. And so what do you guys think of that comparison? Like, do you think that may ring true in a sense?
I kind of do agree, but at the same time, going back to what Henry was saying for this podcast that you guys recorded a few weeks ago, I would be like, where's there's Invincible, that just has as much gore and graphic into it. But I do agree though that anime does take it a step further than I guess like US comics in terms of like violence and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I get what you guys are driving at, and it's that there's kind of a place for everything, right? Just because, Godzilla is arguably Jurassic Park on steroids. Maybe sometimes you don't want to have Jurassic Park on steroids. You just want to have Jurassic Park, right? I get that. Yeah. It doesn't have to be volume turned up to 11 all the time, right? And that does make me think of one of the appeals of the Jurassic Park movies and just dinosaurs in general. And that's the fact that dinosaurs did, in fact, exist, right? Godzilla is pure fiction. And a lot of what we see in movies is completely through our imagination, right? But, it's for real. Dinosaurs did exist. We have the proof in the fossils, right? All that. Yeah, I think that there's a big appeal factor there, not only with the Jurassic Park movies, but, as young children, there's something to the fact that they actually did exist, right? We were talking about fandom earlier. To me, dinosaurs are like the original fandom. I would say for most boys, like dinosaurs are like one of the first things that we're into, our first fandoms, right? A big part of it is that they were big giant monsters. Yeah, of course, that's appealing. But another big part of it is the fact that they for real existed, right? They're in like science books and stuff, nonfiction, right? So that's like inherently pretty cool.
Yeah, like what was the point I actually wanted to get into next? Exactly. Like what do you think makes dinosaurs so appealing to kids? What do you Although I think you already hit like a very good point, Henry, on it. So, what do you think, Porfirio? What do you think makes dinosaurs so appealing to kids? What was appealing to you?
The violence.
Like good point.
I mean, like if I'd look back to like all the stuff that I was into when I was a kid, like Power Rangers, Spider-Man, X-Men, they all have one thing in common, and that's violence. The fight scenes. Like dinosaur, eat human. Power Rangers, it's fighting. X-Men, Spider-Man, they fight bad guys. Like It's definitely violence. um, but I guess, like, in another sense, I think what makes dinosaurs appealing is just, I guess, like the exoticness to it. Like, you're into animals because they're just so like different, and they're not human. They're just kind of like, that's cool, that's amazing. And dinosaurs, since they're just so big and different, I guess that's what makes them appeal to a little kid's curiosity and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a great point about violence, because I was thinking when I was growing up, I did love dinosaurs as a young boy. But easily my favorite dinosaur was the T-Rex. And the reason was because it was a hella violent creature, right? It was a hunter. It was a killer. Um, but that made me think too of yet another appeal of dinosaurs, and that's that. Yeah, there were predatory dinosaurs like the T-Rex, but there were a lot of different types of dinosaurs, and I think the way that we were introduced to dinosaurs at a early age was a pretty cool introduction, right? We were almost introduced to them like classic literary characters, right? There's like the Brontosaurus, like the gentle giant, and like the T-Rex is the violent hunter, and like there's the T-Rex and Triceratops rivalry, and even though dinosaurs for real existed, I think there was some poetic license with how some of these stories were told, right? There's like these rivalries, and each dinosaur was like a character in a story, right? So it was almost like uh, the way we look at, the Avengers or the Justice League. Um, we can see like, okay, who's my favorite Avenger, or who am I most like you take a personality test. Okay, who am I, which Game of Thrones character am I, right? The same can be said with dinosaurs, right? Each dinosaur kind of has a different personality and appeal to them, right? So I think that's a big part of the fandom too.
Mm-hmm. And I think like looking back on it as an adult, like is like it's like an into like learning. It's like in a sense,
Yeah,
because like as a kid you think, learn, I don't want to learn, like learning stupid, learning history, no way. But there's something like, because of the violence, because of the predatorial of like the T-Rex and how massive it was, and how it was like like the way you described like the T-Rex versus the Triceratops fighting. It was like the Clash of the Titans in a sense.
yeah,
But I think through that, I think part of like it's like a way to like in a sense like trick kids to learning about the world. You kind of learn about you learn about history, you learn about paleontology, biology, um and so, like, and it's a way to and like having these interests at a very young age is like a way for us to grow into learning about much harder topics and more scientific topics. It's like our in a sense. And so I think that's part of it. So I think that, and like going to a museum and like seeing the bones and things like that is a way to like just kind of like give us that sense of awe and imagination. And so I think as a kids, and like maybe like as an adult, it's like a way to like kind of bring your kids into school in a sense, and see that learning can be fun, learning can be great, and there like a lot of really cool things happen like on Earth. And I think like also part of it is like and it like, I guess, I don't know if this is going down too dark of a topic, but like there's the big asteroid is also another, is like a part you learn early on. The asteroid coming to Earth and killing all the dinosaurs is like a big part of learning the dinosaurs. It's like, and so in a sense, it's like if the it kind of, it like gives a sense of mortality in a way, because if these mythical creatures could have died, if like that were so larger than life, then in a sense, like what will happen to us?
Yeah, definitely solid points there.
Although as a kid, that might be a point you might come to a little old, when you're a little older. But it's like something to think about as a kid, and it's like it's a part of learning about the dinosaurs. It's a part of learning.
Yeah, that made me think of something else. I think with this film franchise and the Harry Potter franchise, it it brought out this whole learning is cool kind of thing. I mean, like we've been saying, dinosaurs are kind of always cool when you're a young boy, but I think with Jurassic Park, that became a really big thing, right? Interest in dinosaurs went like through the roof with this franchise, right? And even more so than before, learning about science and history became kind of cooler. And similarly with the Harry Potter books and movies, reading became cool again, right? For kids. So
That's true for me. Yep.
right. Yeah.
So yeah, learning is fun. So actually, Henry, like, so like, as a dad, like, has your kid shown interest in dinosaurs? Like, would you show him this movie? Do you think he would have the same imagination for dinosaurs going forward?
Yeah, it's funny you asked that because my son Simon, who is 7 now, has definitely shown interest in dinosaurs. Maybe more so when he was younger. Um, it's funny because I did bring up Godzilla, and he is a big Godzilla fan. He's seen a lot of Godzilla movies with me. And I think the points that I brought out earlier about myself leaning more towards Godzilla are the same reasons why he gravitates more towards Godzilla. Because when I watched Jurassic Park the other night, I told him, I was like, oh hey, I'm gonna watch this cool dinosaur movie, you want to watch? And he's like, yeah, okay. And he sort of like drifted in and out. Like he watched parts of it, and then he went to the other room to do something else, and he came back, and he wasn't really fully engaged, right? So he liked parts of it, but wasn't totally into it. And the whole time I was thinking, yeah, like if Godzilla showed up in the middle of this movie, he probably would have just watched the whole movie, right? But it just wasn't quite enough like thrills for him, I think. So like I said before, I think dinosaurs are capture uh, the the attention of any young boy, I think, any young child. But maybe now, with like so many other forms of entertainment out there, maybe they don't have the monopoly on children that they used to. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like, I think also, I guess a part of growing up with Jurassic Park is that like there was just so much dinosaur focused media at the time.
Yeah.
And so I think that was also part of it. Whereas, like, I mean, yeah, I guess I'm not really sure, I guess, what kind of dinosaur media, like shows, TVs, movies outside of the Jurassic Park / Jurassic World franchise are around now.
Yeah. I mean, comparing his life now to my life when I was his age, I remember I had this book, like this dinosaur book, that I would like read like all the time. I would like memorize all the words and just like endlessly look. and I didn't have a whole lot else, you know. Um, Whereas compared to him, like dinosaurs are competing with Spider-Man and Batman and the Avengers and Harry Potter and you name it, right? There's so many things that are like competing for his attention. Dinosaurs got some serious competition now, right? Yeah, it's a different world now.
Huh? Yeah, that's it's fun hearing about like kind of the new world and like what kids are
Yeah,
growing up with now in a sense.
yeah,
How it's there's a lot of similarities, but it's also very different, and how like it kind of how there's just so much media now.
yeah.
Yeah. So I guess let's see. I guess before we wrap up, I guess I'll ask you guys another question. I guess switching fandoms from dinosaur fandom into the Steven Spielberg fandom.
Mm-hmm.
So where do you guys think this ranks amongst Steven Spielberg movies? Because he directed this, and of course, he's a guy with no introduction. Of course. So where would you guys say? Would you say this is like favorite, among the top, among the middle?
Okay, this I think like yeah, without a shadow of a doubt, this is my favorite one. Like I yeah, looking back at his movies, I mean they're all great. Raiders of the Lost Ark, Jaws, E.T. You know, his resume is just legendary. But Jurassic Park just has a special place in my heart, and I could just go on and on about how great the film is, and I think because of that, like the connection I have with it and all the great elements, music, story, characters, visual effects, I think just makes it rank very high for me and the best film that he's done, in my opinion.
All right, all right.
Yeah, so yeah, Spielberg. Um, yeah, you know, the film snob in me doesn't really want to acknowledge how great Spielberg is. But kind of like what I was saying earlier, I mean, you have to recognize the greatness that is Steven Spielberg. Of course, he's a legend. He's a genius filmmaker, right? So important to the medium of movies. So I would say without a doubt, he's a great filmmaker. But I would also say he's not one of my favorite filmmakers. Um, Again, it's like probably the film snob in me talking. It's almost like too basic an answer to say, oh, my favorite film director is Steven Spielberg. Yeah. Um, but yeah, no, he's never really been my favorite. Um, so I'll say that. I will also say that Jurassic Park is not among my favorite Spielberg movies. Um, and this goes back to what we were saying at the very beginning about like when were you introduced to a certain movie. And my favorite Spielberg movie is Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I don't doubt the fact that it's totally about when I saw it. I saw it at a young age, and it will always have a magical feel to me. You know, I bet if I put it on tonight, I'll be like, wow, those effects look really old, but it doesn't matter. Like it's just movie magic, and it just holds such a special place in my heart, right? So that's my favorite. And again, not a thumbs down for me on Jurassic Park. I would definitely recommend it, and I do recognize how important movie it is. Um, but yeah, not my favorite Spielberg movie, and Spielberg again, not one of my
Mhm.
top favorite directors.
Yeah, like Spielberg is definitely like he's kind of like Mr. Blockbuster, you know. Um,
Mm-hmm.
he's Mr. Holly in a sense. He's kind of like the first guy you think of when you hear the word Hollywood.
Yeah,
Um, and like I guess of course like they do say Jaws created the blockbuster in a sense,
right.
so that could be it. But let's see. As far as my favorite Spielberg movie, Like, this is Jurassic Park is definitely my most watched movie of his. It definitely is my favorite. Although, like, yeah, Raiders is definitely up there as well. I saw that when I think I was much younger when I saw Jurassic Park than Raiders. I think I was like, probably a preteen, 10, 11, 12. And while it is a fantastic movie, captures the imagination, I guess, like, Jurassic, it's just that certain time, that certain just big dinosaur nostalgia that draws me to this one. And of course, as adult, Saving Private Ryan is, of course, a great movie. That's also definitely up there. And so I think between those three, Jurassic Park is definitely my most watched. I love that. But who knows? Maybe in a few years, maybe on a different day, you ask me, I could say a different movie. Or from those three.
One thing I would add about Spielberg, again, not one of my favorites, but you have to respect his versatility, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned Tarantino earlier, and I'm a huge Tarantino fan, but you could argue his movies tend to be pretty similar. Like you can expect to see some bloodshed, but with Spielberg, I mean, we've listed a few movies that are completely different, right? Jurassic Park versus Saving Private Ryan versus Schindler's List versus Raiders. Like, yeah, he's all across the board, and he's adept at crossing genres like that. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Do you think kids these days will latch on to, like, I guess, Ready Player One the same way that we may have latched on to Jurassic Park or Raiders?
No. Like, you don't hear kids or anybody talking about, like, the legacy of Ready Player One. Like, no.
Yeah.
That
kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, like, about memorable dialogue. Like, bottom line, the movie has to be good, first of all. And Ready Player One just wasn't that good of a movie,
No.
Right? Yeah.
Of course, yeah. I think when I think of Ready Player One, it's like more of like you think of the things you see in Ready Player One. Like, oh yeah, that's the DeLorean. Hey,
yeah,
hey, that's Mechagodzilla.
Yeah.
Rather than, I guess, the characters themselves.
Yeah. Oh, that goes back to something we talk about a lot, and that's fan service, right? Fan service is fun, but if it's there without much context or without much reason for it to be there, then it's just stupid, right?
I guess so. Like, do you think that Jurassic Park has, like, there's like a level of fan service with Jurassic Park?
No, I don't think so. Maybe like in the later franchise films, but Jurassic Park, I feel like, was just a film on its own that wasn't made for anybody. It was just a film that Spielberg wanted to just make come to life, and yeah, that's how I see it.
Yeah, I was thinking about that a little bit. Like, what if they tried to do dinosaur fan service in Jurassic Park? Probably would have been pretty disastrous. But I was thinking, like, yeah, what if Spielberg was like, okay, we have to have a T-Rex versus Triceratops battle in this movie because we all grew up knowing that, these two creatures had a rivalry and people want to see that, it could have been pretty bad if he just, like, wedged in this, like, unnecessary battle scene. So yeah, I think it's probably good that this movie happened prior to, like, fan service being a big thing. And I agree with you, Porfirio. It's pretty free from that sort of thing.
All right. Well, let's see. Would you guys want to talk about the Jurassic Park sequels at all, like, anywhere briefly? Because, like, because of course, Me personally, I didn't really care for any of the sequels. Jurassic World, I think, was all right, and that's kind of, I guess that's the bar for sequels. Do you guys have anything about the sequels? Are you guys looking forward at all to the next Jurassic World movie, or curious to see what it has in store?
I am. I will say, like, I don't know. I guess like, like it could be a bad movie, like Star Wars or whatever, and I would still probably go watch it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like I just, like I said earlier, like who doesn't want to see a movie about dinosaurs like roaming around and eating other dinosaurs or eating humans? Like it's the violence. So I guess like yeah, I'm low key excited for the next Jurassic World movie. Just even after seeing Fallen Kingdom, because Fallen Kingdom wasn't that good. But the next one, I'll still, you'll still see me going to go buy tickets to go watch it, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't have a huge level of interest for the Jurassic Park follow-ups. I've seen some of them, haven't seen all of them. One thing that struck me about Jurassic World was, why was Chris Pratt cast for this movie? Like the character is kind of humorless, and Chris Pratt is really known for being a great comedic actor, right? If you look at the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and Parks and Rec, he's legit funny, right? Um, but he's not in Jurassic World, and yeah, that kind of threw me for a loop. I'm like, what is he even doing in this role, right? I kind of feel like they just wanted like a famous person to sell the movie, and that was pretty much it.
I feel like he was kind of funny, but like in a douchey kind of way. Like he was way more like that jock who like goes and has that humor with what's her name, Bryce Howard.
Yeah, Bryce Dallas Howard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like so I feel like maybe the kind of humor that we're going for just wasn't appealing to maybe us, but I felt like he definitely had that jock douchey humor.
Mm-hmm. Like, I imagine, I bet why they cast him was just charisma alone. Like, they just need a charismatic role for, I guess, like this new trilogy that they wanted. Um, and they probably didn't have the best idea of what to do with the character himself,
Mm-hmm.
as seen in the sequel, Fallen Kingdom. But it's hard to say if he was like if he was miscast and like a different actor would be better and like pull off the role, or if there was just nothing there and his charisma might be the only thing that kind of saved the character.
Maybe that's it. Yeah.
Like I think they wanted Han Solo, but they didn't know how to write Han Solo in a sense, or Indiana Jones.
There you go.
But they didn't know the nuts and bolts of how to make Indiana Jones. And so I guess that's my thought. Like I think, although I do think Jurassic World is still probably the best sequel of the Jurassic Park franchise. But not by much. I think the nostalgia for the Lost World for me just isn't there quite in the same way it is for this movie. Even though I did love that movie as a kid. But I remember watching it like lately, and I was like, this is bad. Oh no, this is a lot worse than I remember. This is the opposite of nostalgia. This is ruining it. And so I think for me, I just have no I could definitely watch it. The next movie, the next Jurassic World. Um, Yeah, dinosaur. I guess dinosaurs are dinosaurs, and it seems like. Do you care if I spoil the end of Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom for you, Henry? I know
Go
you
for
haven't
it.
seen it.
Spoiler alert. Go for
Yeah,
it.
spoiler alert for the new one. Um, so like the whole idea between Fallen Kingdom was that they were going to like they want dinosaurs to be in the world. They wanted to get dinosaurs off the island into the real world, and the whole movie was kind of setting that up. And so that's what they're gonna do in the next movie as the big setup. And so it's like, oh, I think that that could be fun. That could make some fun little like moments here and there.
Interesting. That's kind of like
But
what you were talking about before about sort of upping the ante a bit, right?
mhm,
Taking them away from this like
yeah,
enclosed area and increasing the stakes a bit.
which I guess was the point. I guess that was the plot hook of Jurassic World, was that they didn't know what to do with dinosaurs, and they didn't know how to up the ante, so they made a new one. But all right, so I guess let's bring it on home. Let's bring it back to the original. So what are your guys' final thoughts on Jurassic Park? Final scores?
Are we rating it already?
Yeah, I think it's time.
Yeah.
Unless you guys have anything else you want to say, is there any other questions, comments you guys want to pose about this movie or the franchise as a whole?
No, I'm ready to rank it. If I'm good.
Yeah, let's do it. So I
Okay.
guess why don't you go first, Porfirio? How would you rate Jurassic Park?
Oh, for sure, five, without a doubt.
Mhm.
Like I said, I love this movie. I could watch it so many times without getting bored. Um, Music, characters, just everything about it is timeless, like legendary, iconic, and I just love the film. And it's five out of five for me.
All right. What about you, Henry? What did you think?
Yeah, Jurassic Park is an important movie in that it sort of brought about a big revolution in visual effects. It's an important movie in Spielberg's filmography, no question. Um, and I certainly don't want to rain on the parade. I know this is a very special movie for both of you. I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. Um, yeah, even when I saw it, you know, around when it came out, I didn't like absolutely love it. And again, I'll go back to like the time in my life that I did see it. I feel like if I saw this movie uh like when I was younger, maybe even just like 5 or 6 years younger, it probably would have been like really special to me, and it would have continued to be special to me in my whole life. So um yeah, that maybe is one of the big takeaway in this conversation for me, is this sort of perspective of like when you see a movie is pretty significant, right? um yeah, particularly like in your like early life, right? So that said, objectively speaking, I'm giving this movie a mild recommendation. It's a well-made movie, and certainly a lot of highlights to it. Maybe the biggest one is the great John Williams musical score. But yeah, 3 out of 5.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah, I think this episode, like in this episode, I think we delve into the idea of perspective very well,
Yeah.
and how perspective and time can really change a movie in a sense, or and or the way we are at a certain point changes the way a movie is to us.
Definitely. I feel like we've done that a few times these past few episodes with like Pokemon and Mortal Kombat
Mm-hmm.
and now Jurassic Park. So
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my final rating, I'll also give it a 5. Was yeah, it's definitely one of those growing up movies. You know, it's definitely up there with the Tim Burton Batman movie, Back to the Future, and like as like the golden movies you watched when you were a kid that you still hold on to. So, I'll give this a 5. And I think even watching it now, I think for me personally, I think because I have that, there's kind of another joy in a sense of like going back to the score of like, oh, that was a great score. Oh, that was such a memorable line that I remember. Oh, like that was staged really well. That's a really good camera in a sense. There's a lot to behold.
Right on. Oh, hey, one last little nugget here. I noticed that this movie has a heavy emphasis on STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And yeah, there's a lot of talk of STEM nowadays about how it's important for young folks to embrace it, and it's pretty cool to see a movie that is this old, 28 years old now, that really embraced it. All the heroes of the movie are like brilliant scientists, basically, right? And they touch upon all this stuff, right? There are hackers, there are scientists, there are mathematicians, engineers, all that cool stuff, right? So again, we're talking about how this movie franchise kind of makes learning cool again. There's another aspect to it right there, right? So I thought that stood out in a pretty positive way.
Science is cool.
Yeah. Okay, with that, we can wrap up the episode. This is farewell from Henry, Porfirio, and Christian.